Welcome to the Professional Priestess Podcast, the place where medicine carriers learn to hold wealth, visibility, and devotion without contraction. Together, let's part the veil and meet the humans behind the magic. Speak to the oracles walking their divine path of service, and the alchemists transmuting density into divinity, all while navigating a very human experience. Together, we will explore shadows and sovereignty, sex and spirit. We will go deep into your soulpreneur business as initiation and visibility as reclamation. I'm your host, Lindsay Schroeder, professional priestess and spiritual mentor for leaders, healers, and those called to take their place at the forefront of the feminine revolution. Every episode is a transmission, every conversation an activation. Welcome to Season 2. This is your invitation to remembrance. I might have an issue with the medical model, but I really love this doctor. And I cannot wait to share this conversation, this truly behind the scenes and lifting the veil and bringing those of you who are practitioners and those of you who are just curious and those of you who are feeling the feminine awakening and the feminine revolution happening all around you. And every little part inside you is like, this is for me too. This is the conversation that's going to change things for you, that's going to really teach you the difference between knowledge and wisdom, between, oh, I get it, to I get to embody it. And before we started recording, you and I were talking a little bit about kind of doing this dance between like, oh, it could be lovely and pleasurable. And yet the other side of that is like, there's going to be shame, there's going to be embarrassment, there's going to be cringe. And it's learning how to navigate between these two. Because as a modern woman, and especially if you went through any type of religious upbringing, it's messy, it's muddy, and to break free to get that lotus flower, there's quite a bit of dirty water. And
Yeah.
Dr. Kimberly Rose Pendleton, you are one of my favorite people to have this conversation with, and I am so excited to bring this to the entire Professional Priestess podcast platform. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, let's get this party started.
So let's just right into it.
Yeah.
Pleasure versus shame. That like I really have found, and I'm sure you have too, with working with so many different women, that like to get to this place of like the drippy, lovey, embodied pleasure, you have to get really close and fall in love with your shame. Not keep
Mhm.
your shame, but there has to be this like, I love you. I honor
Yeah.
you. You are
Yeah.
sacred. And thus I can move through you because I am willing to face you and hold you and love you completely.
I think
Talk
that's
to us.
exactly right. Yeah. It feels like the difference between something staying in the shadows, but then secretly puppet mastering us from there, or bringing it out into the light. I mean, like, I see you too. You're here. Let me integrate you instead of like hide you and then accidentally kind of like let you have this outsized impact. If we have a part of us that feels shameful or isolated, but we bring it over in and just see, like, okay, where did you come from? Like, where did this begin? Who taught me to be ashamed of this? Like, it starts to lose some of that scary, grippy power. And it starts to just be like, oh, that's like an inner child. Oh, that's like an inner teenager. Like, it's okay. Or, maybe more often with our work, it's like, oh, that's a desire that like you've
Mm,
been taught to
yeah.
feel wrong about, but it's actually okay. You want power, you want money, you want sex, you want something else like pleasure. What if it weren't actually shameful? What if it was just a piece of you that it's really benefited everybody else for you to, like, tamp down and be quiet?
I wanna like dive further into. I think
when most people hear, "Oh, you want sex," like taking a tiny little portion of what you just said, and we
Yeah.
hear like, "Oh,
Yeah, it's like,
you know,
pick your poison.
these, like, shoved down desires, the, like, "Oh, you want sex." I think that is something that has become more and more common for us to talk about and that we can move through the channel of like, "Oh, yes, women do desire pleasure and sex too." But I love that you started with power and
Yeah.
with money.
Yeah.
And I think those 2 and I deeply believe that all 3, in a way, are the same.
Yes,
And yet because our resistance to them is so similar, and yet they are so very different, but I think bringing power and money into it is
yes,
part of the priestess path, and I think that is something that is so misunderstood, and I think your background with Mary Magdalene in particular really
huh?
can, like, shine not just a little flashlight, but we can get, like, a full floodlight on this thing and be like, "You have been, as a woman, especially in America, programmed to, like you're saying, shove those desires, those very natural desires, those very prominent parts of your soul's path, power, money, and sex are for a lot of us prominent pieces to our
Yes.
pleasure, our
Yeah,
fulfillment, our purpose,
yeah,
our dharma. And yet, our programming, the autopilot software that most of us are running, unless you know how to edit, you know how to look at it, and you know how to reprogram it,
yeah,
is teaching us to shove that down, teaching us that it's
yeah.
wrong, that it's bad, that it's shameful.
Right, right.
So let's start with identifying that for anybody
Yeah,
who's like, "I don't know about that, like, I'm
yeah.
not sure about it," and you and I are like, It's
But like,
real."
here, this connects to this. No, it's so good. It's so true. I mean, just anecdotally too, I will say the pushback I've gotten around talking about money has been so much more vehement than about sex and intimacy. You know,
Yes.
I'm an
Yes.
intimacy coach talking about like pleasure, posting pictures of lingerie, doesn't matter. People are like, yes, we celebrate that. I start sharing a money win, talking about how I've made $1,000,000, like, then we're getting into the shadow because it's
Mhm.
like, ooh, now we're looking at power. It's
Yes.
so interesting, and I'm so glad you brought up Mary Magdalene because it is this, I think, archetype for especially the spiritual women and the priestess path where I didn't learn until later in my adult life about Mary Magdalene as a wealthy woman, in addition to being a spiritual leader, in addition to being this kind of like figure associated with sensuality, not for the reason that most of us were taught, but still having this connection, you know, the perfume, the oil. It's like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like priestess
Mhm.
energy here. But it wasn't until like so recently, like in the last 10 years, that I started to see like, oh, historians know, like this woman bankrolled this whole operation. It's even
Mhm.
in the Bible. Like Jesus was funded by Mary Magdalene. And when you look into where that money came from, I know it's so
It's so
good.
good. Oh my God, I got goosebumps
It's so
already.
good, and it's like, they don't know exactly, but Magdala was a wealthy fishing village. They're like, she could have been a businesswoman. She could have had family money. Either way, that perfume that she poured out was like a year's worth of wages. This is like Chanel number 5. Like, this is expensive. So
Mhm.
we've got this indication that this figure who got slut shamed and written out of the story was the wealthy priestess bankrolling the whole spiritual movement. What a blueprint for us. And what a kind of symbol of what we're sometimes scared of. Like, if I'm going to be seen, am I gonna get called a whore and cut out of the Bible?
Yeah,
Or my
probably.
version of that.
Probably. Yes.
Probably. Some pope somewhere is gonna say, like, she was a slut.
Yes. And, like, the the embodied fear that especially those of us who can connect, do connect, or even are afraid to connect with not only our blood and bone lineage, but our Akashic lineage of like the many
Yes.
lives that you've held, especially those of us who choose the practitioner path or are
Yes.
offering services or are in any way, shape, or form letting our gifts out and being compensated in
Yes.
any way. Not just money, because I understand there are many of you who like trade with friends or offer this in your
Right.
group or like are giving your gifts, or maybe you're the apothecarian amongst your family. Like there's so many ways to be doing this, and I think it's really important for us as the like both healer and business
Yeah.
woman to speak to there's not just one way to do this. And so like we want to include as many of you as possible, like if you're willing to be included in that. And even just like a little like maybe if you are sharing your gifts in any way,
Yeah.
like being a woman, it's really hard to not share your gifts in
It's
some way.
true.
We're just
Yeah.
naturally like made in that way.
Overcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deeply desire to like if we have a gift, a skill set, a sight, a truth, we desire to share it. We desire to amplify and magnify. And it is like that candle being lit of like a lot of times it when done in alignment, we give and it only amplifies from
Yes.
it doesn't take away when obviously done correctly, done in alignment versus the like how some of us have been taught. A lot of us have been taught to like give so much that it is detrimental to the self. And
That's
so
right.
finding that dance too.
That's such a profound point you're making that exploitation and extraction, that almost manipulation of our gifts, it works because it taps into something true about us. And I've actually never heard anybody put it quite like that. I really love that. But it's like, yeah, a woman who's filled up, who's nourished, who's supported, we're like naturally overflowing and generous and abundant. And it's like sharing what we know, sharing what we've done. I feel like that's why mentorship can be so powerful because it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to gatekeep. These are all the mistakes I made on my way here. Here's what I would do. Like, here,
Take
take this,
notes.
take that.
Don't.
Exactly. Get that. But I feel like you're also getting at like why that can feel so tricky for so many of us because when we aren't supported, and so many
Yes.
women aren't, then it can be this like almost violent dynamic where it's like I'm giving and giving. I'm trained to overgive. I'm trained to like give beyond, what's good for me and then be depleted. And I feel like that's like honestly kind of the norm in like our society is like the depleted woman instead
Mhm.
of like some kind of right relationship in exchange where like yeah everyone's getting what they need and she's pouring out from a cup that's overflowing, not like nearly empty.
This to me is one of the like most succinct ways to express why wealthy women are so important. Because when women have access to money and power, the way that a woman wields it is so different. It's so
Literally.
unique. Mhm.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not this like pyramid top down where like right beneath gets the most. It's not how we see corporate structure, patriarchal structure, capitalistic structure.
Right.
Women tend to, and of course there are always individuals that don't follow that like in
Sure.
every group, but for the most part, when I see wealthy, resourced, supported women, I have not talked to one self-made millionaire in this area, industry, intention who cannot immediately rattle off her favorite, most exciting ways that that money has helped other people.
That is so beautiful.
Of like her favorite philanthropy or how she did that or when
Yeah.
she got to this point to be able to donate for this or when she took care of so and so family member or when she was the reason that this didn't have to happen or this could happen. Like she has those so close to the heart, closer
Yeah.
than the moment where she got to like buy herself this certain thing or look in this certain way.
Right.
I'm not saying those
Right.
things aren't important. Like it
They
is
go
so
together. Yeah.
But, like, it is right up there of, like, "Oh, this is how I give back. This is my favorite animal sanctuary. This is my favorite women's shelter." Like, when I got to this point and I got to, like, max out my contribution over here, like,
Yes.
that's when I made it. That's
Yeah.
what I hear. That's what I
Yeah.
see. That's what I feel on every single self-made millionaire I've ever talked to in our
I love
industry.
it. That is so profound, to go totally to the other kind of end of the spectrum in some ways, but to echo that same sentiment. I remember when I was getting my PhD, one of my fields was in humanitarian crisis. And I was doing all these political science, texts and studies and like looking at all this research. And these are not like feminist guys, but it was just like, well, the data shows that if you want to uplift a community, you give the resources to the women. And
Yep.
it was just like time after time, micro lending all the way out to like huge infusions of aid, the money going to the mothers, to the women in a society meant that they were building schools, cleaning water, setting up gardens, making sure kids had medicine, like just taking care of everyone. And it
Yes.
was, like, both anecdotal and just, like, this is what the stats are showing us. We gave the money to the men and they fucking left. We gave the money to the women and they made their community safe and healthy and thriving, and everybody rose. And it's really stuck with me, you know? It
Mhm.
happens on an individual level, of course, with, like, my peers and my clients and friends, and I see it happening as, like, women I know get more and more, and it's also true
Yeah.
on this, like, systemic global level, and that's priestess shit.
Yeah. And I mean, now that we get to see women in leadership roles, especially with
Yes.
other countries, like when we're seeing
Yes.
women lead countries and we're like, oh, wow.
Look at
So
that. Oh, so it can be done
COVID
differently.
ran a
Yeah.
little differently for you guys.
No.
Or like we look at Mexico right now and you're just like, wow, women.
No. I know. I'm
Mhm.
obsessed with
And, like,
her.
I love the conversation that is so typical around, like, "Oh, women shouldn't have power because they're so emotional, they're so inconsistent."
God, when we've
And
got, like, an
yet
actual toddler running our country right now.
right? We're like, "Come on." But my favorite part about that and when I learned this, like, scientific logical factoid, it, like,
Yeah,
really changed the level of fun I had in conversations with men
love
when they
that.
say that.
Yes.
Because when we typically deem women the most emotional, it's
Yeah.
when we're bleeding and our
Yeah.
testosterone spikes
Oh
during
my
our bleed. We are the
god.
most masculine.
When we're the most like
So you mean to tell me a woman who's mostly lady and then a little bit gentleman at this specific youth
Oh,
boys,
that's
I
blowing my
I
mind.
think there might be
I
a little
love
hole
it.
in our logic over here.
Yeah.
Like women lead with a very, as you're saying, like when you give them the money, how they work
Yes.
this, what is important.
Yes.
Like I see a lot of men who have this fear of like, oh, if we go to a matriarchy, then like we're screwed, we're down at the bottom. And it's like, it's not just switching who's at the top of the pyramid. Like when you talk
It
about
changes the
matriarchies,
whole
when you talk
thing.
about women in
Right.
leadership positions,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's a spiral, it's a
Right.
circle.
It's
It's
so
a
different.
completely different setup altogether.
Totally. And so many of them little cattail. Do you wanna come join us? They can't even imagine
Yes.
because it's so antithetical to what they've always seen. Here, come sit.
And everything in the oh, hello,
I know.
baby.
She's like, "Oh, divine
Oh, the
feminine? I'm here
nose.
for that."
She's like, yes, ladies. Yes.
That's
Yes.
right, pussy power.
Like, we just, especially being so deeply saturated in colonialism, in
Exactly,
patriarchy, in this like
exactly.
attack, rape, pillage,
Take,
take
extract.
control. Yes.
100%,
I
100%.
totally get that you would be steeped in fear
Totally.
and
You're
panic
afraid because
that
you
if
know what
anyone
you've
were to
done.
ever do to y'all what y'all have
Exactly.
been doing to everybody else, yes, that would
Right.
really suck. That
Right,
would really
right,
suck.
right. I think that's exactly it. It's like, "Oh, all I can conceive of is basically having power and using it to harm. And so if I'm not gonna be in control, I'm gonna be scared. It's like, okay, well, that's the whole problem, baby. That's like all the whole thing we're trying to fix.
And the opposite of that is that I think so many women are scared, are
Yeah.
shame, are full of embarrassment, are like, "Oh, it's bad, it's wrong for me to want to be powerful, have control, access to these resources, be in the forefront, speak my opinion, revolutionize." So, I wanna give you some space to share, like, if when we're saying that, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's me." Like, you're feeling it in the throat, you're feeling it in the pussy, you're feeling it in the back, you're feeling it in the body. You're like, "Yep, that's me." Like, I want
Yeah.
it. When I hear it, I know I want it, but I am
Yeah.
scared to, like, trust myself with it, I think is a big
Yeah.
piece of it. I
Yes.
am nervous to go up against the, like, the system that's around me that like I won't fit in the same way if I
Yeah.
am different in that way. Talk
Right.
to us about how we get to a better, more comfortable, safer, more empowered place around that.
Yeah, gosh, it makes so much sense. I mean, I think that first and foremost, what you're saying about just the way we've all been trained to think about power is such a good place to start because it's like, in some ways, it is gonna require, like, a big imagination to think about
Mhm.
what's different, to think about how we can be a different type of even, like, leader. Like, okay, what does it look like to be in power? What does it look like to be professional? What does it look like to be, like, I don't know, sharing our gifts in a way that, like, is actually leading the masses, like, when they need it the most, but that we've never really seen modeled, and we're kind of making it up as we go. And in particular, and I know you and I are so aligned on this, it can be a real mindfuck when the paradigm we've inherited is you can either be feminine, sexy in your body, or
Or
smart, sharp, fierce leader, but,
yeah,
like, we don't have a lot of space in our culture for being both, and that's actually what I think so many of us want, is to be both,
yes.
and to be like, yeah, like, of course, some people, like, aren't as, femme or don't wanna express in that way, but I think a lot of us are like, "No, I'd love to stay kind of, like, able to dance in my kind of, like, priestessy, goddessy vibes and have none of that discredit that I am, like, definitely so smart and able to handle this and fierce and have so much to say, and I, like, don't wanna compromise either side."
And I don't wanna have to compartmentalize them. I think that was the
That's
bigger
it.
that's the one that, like, is still a big piece for me. Growing
Yes,
up, being taught what professional is and what jobs are and what a career is, and not
100%.
right? And, like, not having like, Mary Magdalene is the perfect example of like we have someone to learn from, and yet everybody, all of the men are like, no, 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 we got to get her out of there. Like
Get her
we
out.
can't
Cut,
let them
cut, cut
see.
that from the canon. Yeah.
Like, we cannot let them witness a woman who's merging those two, who has the financial power, who has the background in the sensuality and the sexuality and the magic and the power in both ways. And I think our current culture has done a really good job of separating these two types of power. And so you can have one or the other as a woman. So you
Yeah,
can shut down your femininity and be like a badass CEO, a lawyer, a doctor, a this or that, but then your femininity can't penetrate into those
exactly.
spaces.
Ex That's exactly it.
Or
Yeah,
you can be sexy, embodied in your body, but then you're trusting a man to manage your finances and you're like,
right.
"Oh, I don't understand how to do like I'm over here, I'm over here." It's that merging of the two
God,
that
yes.
is the scariest woman
I think
to
that's
this system.
exactly right. It's like we're blending everything we've been taught, and, you can see, like, in a way I'd be so interested to hear what you think about this actually, but, like, in a way, I think this resurgence and popularity of, like, the trad wife
Mhm.
stuff is, like, it's a contorted desire for exactly what we're talking about,
Yes.
where it's like, "Okay, I see you girls. What I'm really seeing is CEOs of very profitable personal brands just like me, but the image is like, I'm going backwards, like, let me
Mhm.
have this traditional lifestyle." And it's like, I know there's a ring light in that, like, barn, I
Right?
mean, it's so fascinating,
Yeah.
but I think and it can be frustrating for me to watch, but I am also like, I think you're longing for that same thing. Like you
Mhm.
want to have both. And I actually wish that you knew it was more of an option.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Completely. Of just like
Yeah.
there are so many of us who naturally, and of course, like we can't exist in a vacuum, but
Yeah.
naturally would merge those two. I mean, like, I don't know about you, but when I was little, the kids who were bossy and had the ideas and had the like
Right.
full game in their
Yeah.
head and could direct and could, you know what I mean? Like, we are powerful beings.
Yes.
But I do, and this is gonna, like, bring us back to what we started with. I think women in our culture, we are much more trained and gifted and taught to expand the gift of being able to hold pain and not the ability to hold pleasure.
I completely agree with that. Completely. In fact, I think often about how I grew up in California. I grew up in a very liberal area. We were lucky to get, like sex education. But even that, I think back and I'm like, wow, best case scenario was you learned how dangerous sex could be. And
Yes.
we were lucky to get that. Plenty of people don't. But it was like, we didn't talk about pleasure. It was not about like orgasms. I don't even remember if like the clitoris came up. It was like STDs, pregnancy, like here's what to worry about, assault. And like again, positive in some ways that we were even getting information, but oh my God, what was missing? Like,
Yes.
how many women are just like never taught to even ask the questions, let alone, and I know some of my religious background, being taught like, oh, if it brings you pleasure, it's probably bad. It's probably sinful. It might lead you to the devil, and you start to
Mhm.
learn. I just think all the time about like what happens when you teach an entire society, like of women in particular,
Mhm.
don't listen to what feels good.
Yes.
Do listen to what feels bad. It's like
Yes.
you're setting the stage for some really scary shit. You're setting the stage for rape culture if you're teaching women that like if they don't want it, that's probably a good thing. And if they do want it, that's probably a bad thing. Like, hello,
Right?
what are we doing?
Right? And like the idea that, especially as a young girl, your first memories around, we'll
Yeah.
say sexuality, not sensuality, because I really feel strongly that most girls retain the moment where you are sexualized, not where
Yeah.
you are sensualizing yourself. And
Yes.
that's a big difference, and for a lot of women, at least a lot of people that I've come in contact with through, like,
Yeah.
client and even just friends, you're sexualized way earlier and for a much longer amount of time before you get to choosing sensuality for yourself.
Yeah.
I can tell you how many people, women, non-men in college that I was like, "Wait, hang on. Are you telling me that you've never experienced an orgasm? Are you telling me that you've never touched yourself in a pleasurable way? Are you telling me that you don't know how to touch your own body in a way that
Yeah.
you enjoy? Are you telling me that the only way that," and this one's one of my like pet, "are you expressing to me that the only way that you can receive pleasure is from someone else giving it to you? That you yourself are not
Yeah.
in understanding, I don't wanna say capable, because it
Right.
is about, like, not understanding how to give pleasure to your own self, and I don't just mean touching your genital, I don't just mean
Right.
masturbation, I mean,
There's
do
so
you
many
know how
ways.
to do a little practice for yourself
Yeah.
where you're like, "Oh, yeah, that feel that, like, that,"
Yes.
even if it's not just a, like, self-pleasure practice that is, like, connected to the touching and stimulation for the purpose of orgasm, but, like, have you ever oiled your entire body and had it take almost an hour and feel like
Amazing.
so delicious, just you, yourself, I, and the mirror.
Yes.
And, like, the fucking doe eyes that I got back when I would say
Right.
them. I mean, like, I was also the kid in high school, like, drawing diagrams of, like, how to masturbate, teaching other
You're
friends.
like, "Let me step in and help here." But no, it's so true. I mean, what you're speaking to is, like, the most profound type of intimacy, us with ourselves, and it's so missing for so many people. And then you see if that's the foundation of your intimate life, like, it's really hard to have an authentic connection with someone else. I feel like so many of the relationship issues that I see and that I've had myself have really stemmed from first and foremost, I wasn't in close communion with me. And so there was no hope of like really nailing it with someone else. I didn't know what I wanted. And when you do this work, this pleasure work that you're speaking about, and really get to know that side of ourselves, it just makes everything better for everybody because we come to the table like, already full.
Mhm. And then you get to share that instead of each
Yes.
of you coming to the table dependent on the other one,
Yes.
starving, dehydrated, needing the other one to understand, to navigate, to figure you out. One of the
Yes.
things that I say in my priestess work that I think translates so beautifully to like intimacy and pleasure is you can only meet another as deeply as you've met yourself. And so,
It's
like,
so
we are
true.
doing this work of meeting ourselves so deeply, so consistently, so that we understand what is mine, what am I
Yes.
working on, what could
Yeah.
potentially, if I'm not aware of it, muddy up the waters
Right.
of session, of client work, of this
Yeah.
container. And it's my responsibility, it's my sacred duty to like understand that, not for us to be solved, healed, fixed,
Right. Right.
perfect, but to
Fix.
understand, oh, yeah, I have this thing that I'm working on. If that shows up in session, let's check to make sure that I'm not projecting, that I'm not bringing that in, that I'm not welcoming that, and focus on you. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really important thing to consider in your intimate, in your sensual, in your sexual expression. If you
Yeah.
have not met yourself in that way, how
Yeah.
could you meet another? And we can take
Yeah.
this in the beautiful direction, but we can also, especially I find in heteronormative dynamics and not just heterosexual relationships, but like as a queer person, when we have heteronormative dynamics too, if you don't know what you like, what you
Right.
want, if you have not met
Right.
yourself in those areas, I have
Yeah.
seen a lot of non-men get into these situations where they're like, I did think I wanted that. I did think I would enjoy that. I did. And then I'm so far into it and I didn't. And I wasn't
Yeah.
confident and comfortable and couldn't navigate.
It's so true.
And just setting yourself up for, I'm expecting this situation or this other person to know more about me than I know about me. Even if it's by default. Like you might not
Right.
consciously understand that, but you're like,
Right.
wow, I'm assuming that like, "Oh, yeah, okay." But if I have not met myself, if I have not had that conversation, that connection, that ask, that sitting with the self, if I don't know how to hear myself or connect to
Yeah.
myself, how do I know that? And how do I desire to explore that? And how do I communicate that to someone else if I don't know how to communicate that to myself?
100%. This is a little bit tangential, but I think connected. I also think so many of us are trained to not know the difference between our own desire and our own pleasure and being desired and the
Yes.
pleasurable feeling of approval and someone being
Mhm.
excited about us. But I feel like so many women, myself included at the beginning of this journey, didn't know that, like, I could turn myself on, or there could be
Mhm.
things me on. It just felt like, oh, it feels good to be wanted. It feels good
Yes.
to be desired, to be the object instead of the subject. And it so feels like what you're speaking of is really us putting ourselves in that other position of like, what if I am the one to please and to decide and to feel it? And that, yes, of course, that can still be like a fun dynamic to receive, but
Yeah.
that's not desire. That is something else. And our own desire is its own entity and it's worth really taking seriously.
If someone's hearing this and is like, I have no idea what I desire, maybe it has been by default. Can you support that person and kind of just give a little bit of guidance to that person around pursuing your own pleasure and identifying your own desires and like what it means to take that responsibility inside the self and move with that as maybe this new North Star as it pertains
Mm.
to sex, sensuality, pleasure, shame, divine feminine, all of these things. Where do they
So
start?
good. Where do they start? I love that. I love thinking of it as our new North Star, first of all. And I do say, I mean, to toot our own horn right now, even the fact that you're listening to this podcast is like such a good beginning because you're cracking the door open. I remember the first time I heard women like us talking about things like this, and it was like some part of me woke up. It
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute, there's something here. Even if I'm a little scared of it, even if I can't say the words pleasure and desire right now,
Mhm.
little did I know, like 20 years later, I'd be an
Right.
intimacy coach, but still. But I do think, for me, I had to start at the level of sensuality, kind of to your earlier point, where it didn't even necessarily have to be about sex or intimacy, but what do I want? What do I want to feel? Even like, what do I want for lunch? What do I want to
Yes.
wear? Like some of those things that should honestly be easy or like we tell ourselves should be
Mhm.
easy. But I know a lot of women who had trouble answering them, and I did too for a long
Yeah.
time. We're so trained to be like, whatever you want, oh, whatever, whatever, whatever. It's
Mhm.
not true. Like, what actually, if you could have anything you wanted, what would you want? And it can start so small. And then kind of to that same point, I got a lot out of using the actual 5 senses to, like,
Mhm.
get kind of grounded in pleasure in the moment. So, like, can I look at something beautiful in this room? Can I like put on something soft? Can I listen to something soothing? Light a candle with a scent that I really love. What are the other senses? Taste. Like have some tea or something that like just really like brings pleasure in this kind of like very you can't escape, but in a good
Yeah.
way, like the moment. Because
Mhm.
I would so often, like, retreat up into my head or, like,
Yes.
just being embodied wasn't really my, like, go-to, especially as, like, a student and, like, a religious person. I don't know, just I feel like
Mhm.
all my
Yeah.
training was, like, be up here and think your
Yes.
way up. And so it was, like, anything that's gonna bring me into this moment was so, so good for me. And then that turned out to be one of my favorite manifestation tools too, because it was like, well, what would the version of me who has what I want, what would her senses be?
Yeah.
What would she be like kind of experiencing? And so that too, it almost became like this reminder that like our senses and pleasure in particular is a portal and it's a portal
Mhm.
to getting what we want by becoming who we want to be.
Yeah, the experience of the feeling, not just the thinking of the thoughts and the
Yeah.
picturing of the things and the envision, but actually like, oh, what my body, what my emotions, what my
Yeah,
electromagnetic field is experiencing right now
yeah,
is collapsing time because it will be the same when I have that, when I'm doing that, when I am that. And so like
exactly.
experiencing it right now, like, yes, right now it's a candle and like, oh, I had
Yeah,
exactly what I wanted for lunch and my favorite outfit. But like
yeah,
when I'm that version, I'm gonna feel the same, and so I can
yeah,
create that with these little things and then hold it and allow
yeah,
those bigger external things to, like, find their way to me and me find my way to them through the, like, true experience, but I
yeah,
think it is very important to point out that it's not just thinking of the thoughts and picturing of it, it's in the body experiencing it.
yeah, literally, yeah. I think that that kind of I mean, in a way, we've all heard the, like, "fake it till you make it," which has, like, never
Mhm.
really landed for me, but what we're getting at instead is, like, feel it, like, until you see
Mhm.
it,
Yes.
Feel it and be it and let it just, like, be in our field, and then,
Mhm.
like, before we know it, it's like, "Oh, this is, like, exactly what I was calling in."
Yeah. And you're like, it feels the same. And that's like so many times how I know that my manifestation, like when I feel further, and we'll use Lindsay
Yes.
time, further versions of me in the present moment. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Kim, pay attention." And I'm like, this is, and
Ooh,
she's like, "This is what it will feel like." And then I look
oh, that's
more.
so
And
good.
she,
That's
like, tells
so
me, and she does
good.
it in a certain way that's, like, on the
Yes.
left side, she just, like, does, like, a little, like, just a little and I'm like, "What? Oh, 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 okay, paying attention." And I, like, literally look around. Most of the time, it's with horses, and recently, I had an experience where, like, my little one took her first lesson, and so, like, walking up to the gate and me being able to, like, vibrationally call them to me, even if I don't know the
My
horses,
god.
just because like, their energy fields are so big. I'm like, I get to be my full priestess self with horses all the time, and, like, they receive me,
Oh.
they know who and what and how, and, like,
Oh,
and
I love that.
so, like, I walk up and literally it's like my Disney princess moment. I'm like, my arms are up and I'm just like, "Ah," and they
Yeah.
all, like, come and my daughter's like, "Mommy." And, like, I
My
just get that little,
gosh.
like, touch on the left-hand side of me, and she's like, "This is what it will feel like." And I went from being at someone else's home, at someone else's barn with someone else's horses, to being
Yeah.
at mine. When
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, this is," and it's the same
Uh,
feeling. And I'm like, "Okay, it's the same feeling." Like, it's gonna feel the same in the body. It's not that far away. And, like,
I
that for
love
me
that.
is the step by step of manifestation of, like, in
Yeah,
the quantum, it's not that far.
it's done, and now I'm just walking it out. No,
Yes.
it's so true, and I feel like that's the it's the secret to enjoying the process
Yes.
also, because I feel like when people have goals and they're working so hard for them and it's like discipline is the fuel and it's just really like I'm failing until I've done it.
Yes.
That is like a recipe, A, to not always even get it, but B,
Yes.
to have it be like kind of miserable the whole way versus this other invitation, which feels very divine feminine and priestess to me, is like, I'm microdosing the future now and I'm like tasting it now and I'm stepping into it now and becoming it now. I get to enjoy it now. And it's just going to get better and better.
That is one of the pillars of my offerings, like, all in a nutshell of, like, let us learn how to shift from destination-based living, where until I get there, and then there's only a small moment of, like, being
Literally a microsecond before you're like, "That's it?"
next thing. Yeah, so if it's get this job, make this amount of money, have this house,
Yes,
hire this team, do this thing, go on this vacation, get to this retreat, have this weekend, it's only that, and
that's
then once
right.
you get there, okay, once you're there, so you show up for the retreat, you're already on to the next thing.
Right,
No, I'm
right.
like, let's change to
Yeah,
the journey, the
yeah,
focus of the journey, the method of travel, that happiness is
yeah,
not that destination. It's how
yeah,
you move through the journey. And really, like, that is such a shift, especially
yeah.
once again in a capitalistic, colonialized, patriarchal society. It's all about destination, accomplishment, exterior. And it's like, yeah, but if you feel like shit and you're not enjoying yourself and you're not having fun and it's like you're disconnected and you're isolated, it's like, yeah, you can have all of the money, you can have the success
Yeah,
outwardly, but let's talk about how many financially successful people are spiritually dehydrated, really fucking
right,
empty,
right.
so fucking alone, and still consistently struggle with, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I haven't accomplished enough. Oh, that's not far enough. And it's
Literally.
like, it's just a hamster wheel, because when you're
Yes.
always focused on the destination and you don't know how to enjoy and be present in the now, the future
Ugh,
is never gonna be the correct now. If you don't understand
100%,
now,
100%.
present, you're never gonna be able to there's gonna be no moment where it's like all of a sudden magically, that's enough money, that's enough
Right.
accolade, that's enough this, that's enough that, that's the right
Done.
person who's just gonna all of a sudden turn me into, oh, I can be present here and now.
Right. Right,
Mhm.
right. Oh my
Yeah.
god, it's so true.
One of the other things I really wanted to talk about when you were talking about the senses and like the starting place, one of the things that I spent more time than I care to admit on this, unweaving the beauty that I was wanting, desiring, experiencing, coveting, the vanity versus the pleasure of feeling
Yes.
and being an embodied, divine, feminine being for myself. And like, I went through a lot of the like compet and deconstructing of like just centering men and men's perspective and
Yeah,
being beautiful and sexy and desirable to a man and to the masculine and the
yeah,
like to the patriarchy of like, okay,
yeah.
what is beautiful versus like, when do I feel beautiful? And
Yes.
that there was a lot of overlap for me when I got a little bit older. When
Yeah.
I grew up in a place that was very thin, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and so I was just this, like, odd Latina duck, and everybody was like, I mean,
Yes.
I don't like, my peers were like, "I don't think you're pretty, but my dad really does," and I was like,
Oh
"I'm
my
so
god.
confused,"
Oh my
and then,
god.
you know what I mean, Latina came more back into,
Sure.
like, what was popular, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, now what has always made me feel," whatever word we'll put on that, "is now what the outside is telling me," and that fucked me up because I
Mm,
had to do so much when I was younger to, like, "Okay, I can be pretty even though nobody else would, like, none of the people they define as pretty look anything like me,
yeah.
and what I find pretty doesn't look anything like me," and I had to, like, separate myself so much, and all of that
Super
happened,
fun.
like, such similar time frame that, like,
And
that
it's such
was
a formative time, you
yeah.
know? It's like, "Oh, okay, I'm already navigating shame, desire, and hormones and friendship."
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was, like, 13 or 14, my aunt got remarried or got I can't remember if it was married or remarried, but I went to the wedding as, like, a bridesmaid, and my uncle's friends, much older than me uncle, his friends thought I was his date. Yeah, and, like, I walked up, like, with him to his little group of friends, and they were all like and I at the time, I didn't understand it, but they were like,
Right.
"Oh, his name and stuff, like, "You brought a date, like, oh, she saw it," and he's like, "This is my
She's
13-year-old
in
niece."
8th grade. Like, yeah.
And I was just
Yeah.
like, "I don't understand." And, like, there is a part that is like, "Oh, I'm enjoying that." Like, I'm enjoying being like, it
Being
was one of the first
desired.
times I got, like, my hair done. I wasn't a girly girl, and so, like, I had my nails done, and I had my hair done, I had this whole, like,
Yes.
outfit on. It was, like, finally
Yes.
a color that I liked, and, like, I felt pre and I was just like, "Oh, I am the same as all these adult women." And I was like, "No, you're fucking not, tiny human." Like
So interesting. Yes. And thank you for speaking to the complexity of moments like that and even the dynamic as adults too, where we're like, there is some pleasure in the experience, but it's
yes.
so commingled with power and it's so divorced from us having ownership over our body and over
Yes.
our pleasure that it's like compromised. And it's still
Mhm.
there. And I think we ignore it and miss something important and that there is something there like a spark and sometimes more, but also like sexualizing a 13-year-old when she is like already having to do battle internally for her own like approval within a culture that's like not making that very easy at a time of life that is like extra hard is
Mhm.
still like an intensity that kids shouldn't have, you know?
Yeah.
And it's complicated because I think for so many of us, there is like that thrill of
Mm.
like, oh, like you want me. And as long as I want me too, I know so many other things. I know that doesn't mean I owe you anything. I know that I'm
Yes.
safe. Then it can just be like pleasure. But if it's
Mhm.
not, and for so many women it's not, it can just be like, is this desire? I don't know. Is this pleasure?
Yes.
I don't know. It's like the most
Yes.
sensation I've felt. I'm fucking
Yeah.
13.
When you mentioned the difference between being the object and being the subject, that
Right.
lit up in like Technicolor for me. And as someone who also has a child, which I know you do as well, when we are raising women, girls, on men,
Yes.
the idea of bringing her up in sacred sexuality, in a non-shameful, in a focused on her pleasure, like, I deeply desire for my child, my daughter, to experience her own sensualization of herself before being sexualized by someone else. And that
Yes.
for me is a very it's a tightrope walk because I cannot control the exterior world, and being someone who was very sexualized very early, like when
Right.
we see these like street interviews of like, when was the first time somebody commented on your body? And girls are like 3, 4, 5, like, and men are like, I don't know. I don't know.
They're
Like,
like, I'm still waiting.
right? Like,
Have
I
none
don't
yet.
recall. Or like, my wife told me she really liked my ab, or like she said that my collarbones were cool, and I never heard that before. And you're just like,
Meanwhile, women
your
are
life.
like, I was 11 and like
Yes.
didn't even know. Yeah.
Yes. And like women come up with all of these stories that like just come from these deep place of like, oh yeah, I was on the train, or I was on the bus, or this, and it's the exterior world. So I'm curious now that you have a child, how, especially the like sex, sensuality, pleasure, shame, like how that's already starting to kind of like form and crystallize, and how that's going to come out, and what are some of the like important pieces for you that you're really excited about, and what are some of the terrifying pieces where you're like, "Ooh, this is going to be a hefty lift,
My
this to
God,
go
it's
through."
such an alive question. Yeah. So I have a 14-month-old daughter, and she's just starting to like walk and talk and kind of be interacting with the world. And you can see already the impulses, even amongst like family and like caregivers, to like control, shut her down, shame, try to like make her more compliant.
Yeah,
And like
agreeable.
as a toddler, I'm like, I can hear her. She might like walk in here with just the most perfect timing. But it's like, yeah, it's like not gonna happen, right? Like a toddler is like not gonna follow the rules, like not gonna be, quiet and like easy in so many ways. And it's already got my mind spinning, just thinking like, oh yeah, like these are all the qualities we fight our lifetime to get back. And she has it. We start with it, and then it gets, like, policed out of us. And then it feels like that's the root of my whole business, is almost
Yeah.
like helping women uncover like that inner part that got layer upon layer of conditioning and shame and silencing and rule following, like, put over it, like all these blankets, like covering up your light. So it's so interesting because in some ways, when I think about my work in particular around shame and sex and freedom, I'm like, well, my dream would be Rosie never even needs it. Like,
Mm.
create a world where I'm irrelevant. And she's just like, what are you even talking about?
Right?
Why would I ever have needed help? Like owning my desire or my pleasure. Like, why would I ever have needed to unpack guilt or detox from shame? It's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Like,
I want her to not understand
yeah.
what I do because
And
it's
we're
so
both
irrelevant.
just like, oh, how beautiful. Like, how beautiful. And
Yes.
so much of similarly, so much of how I like raise her and what is important, like one of my co-parents will tell me all the time, well, like, I don't want her to distrust authority. And I'm like, I do. Like, as a
Really?
woman,
Yeah.
I never want her to choose, oh, that person is in a position of power, so I should
So
just listen to them.
profound. So profound.
Never.
Yes.
Now, there
Yes.
will be times where that's wrong or a mistake, and I will need to help her through that, because like, yeah, you can't just be like middle fingers up to your teacher just because she's or he or they are in power. But I would
Sure.
much rather teach this, I want to question it, I want to be sure, can
Let
you
me feel into
explain?
this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. At the very least, let me talk to my mom.
Yes, at the
But
very
no,
least.
it's
Hang on,
so true.
let me check with mommy first.
One second.
Hang on.
No, there is. It's so profound to imagine a generation of girls learning to listen to themselves as the ultimate authority and like how radically that would change. Honestly, I think about how many industries would immediately collapse.
Right?
Like,
Like,
our
I even
economy really is fueled on
yeah,
women's, like, lack
yeah,
of
yeah,
self-trust.
yeah. I mean, like, even beauty standards with, like, the
Yes.
generations underneath us, like, it was one of
Yes.
my favorite things to see all of these Gen Z actors and actresses showing up on, like, talk shows and interviews with the little pimple patches of just, like, "This
Yes.
is not my movie set, this is not my music video, this is not my award show, so, like, I'm taking care of me instead of
Yeah.
being worried about how you guys are gonna perceive me and what you guys are gonna say
I
about
love
me.
that.
This is"
I
and I
love
was like,
that.
I can't imagine, like, I can't and I was like, "But I
Yeah.
won't," and I'm like, I swear I spent a whole Millie Bobby Brown interview not listening to what they were talking about at all, but
Yeah.
regulating my nervous system
Yeah.
for having no makeup on and having pimple patches on, and her just like, "Beep," and I'm just like, "You are so
Yes.
chill."
You're
I don't
feeling
know if
something.
you understand the implication of, like, they're gonna blast this all over and people are gonna talk shit if you don't care, if you've already are you already regulated? And I'm just, like, having this full-blown conversation and practice with myself, I'm like, "I heard not one word of what you
Curious.
said,"
You're like, "I'm gonna need to redo that. I wanna
and I'm
hear
like,
it again,
"This
but
was way more
how
beneficial."
profound." Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So good.
I love the perspective of, like, I am working myself out of a job in my
Right.
child's mind, and, like, I do
Right.
that so similarly, especially as it
Yeah.
pertains to, like, her gifts, that, like, so many of my clients come to me and they're like, "I know I'm gifted." And whether they're saying that to me with their mouth or they're saying that to me with their energy body or they're saying it anecdotally through these stories of like, "Well, I got a reading or I did a blah 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 or I put it and then I felt," and like, but my gift can only show up when other people facilitate the timing and the space and the situation and the
Yeah.
tools and this and that. But like I think,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit I'm gifted. And I'm like, I want my kid to be like, oh no, like I wield my magic. I know how to use my own magic. And
Yeah.
whether or not she lands on the end that I land on where like I believe magic is this, this, and this, or she believes like, mommy, you use the word magic, but it's just science. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's
I
just
don't
how
care
it
where
works.
she's at, but like
Okay.
her utilizing more than just her body, more than just her mind, the like whatever she considers is beyond that, to be able to wield that, to know that like her intentions and her frequency and her thoughts and her feelings and like her desires, they are all
Dude.
part of her magical soup and that she can choose and create and I dance around the word control, but, like, it is in a lot of senses being able to control that because 'cause we're playing a video game in this reality.
So true. It's so true.
Mm. I love that we're both
Um,
like, I hope our children never need our work.
it's such a profound thing to say, right? It's like, what a legacy.
Yeah. What a world. Like, if they
Yeah.
grow up and they hit 18 and 25 and 32 and 46, and they're like, "I have never needed my
Yeah.
mother's work."
Yeah. There's no
And I've
shame.
lived in a world
Yeah.
in their space where, like, nothing has infiltrated so much that then I need to go to it. Holy shit.
Yes.
New forever goal unlocked. I'm like,
Oh,
I want my kid and your kid to live in worlds where mine doesn't need mine or yours and yours doesn't need mine. Yes. And I'm like, so
yes.
what is a place like we've talked about if you yourself are, oh, I don't know my desire. I'm not sure about my
Yeah.
well, now you're like, "Oh, fuck, I got kids too." I got a
Right.
tier question on this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is obviously something that you've been thinking about before you choose to, like, have a child, but now that once they're there and once you see other people like, I remember the first time that I heard someone call her a good girl or tell her to be a good girl, and I was like,
Totally. You're like, "Oh my god, my whole work is against
right.
this."
Like, there is one man in the entire world that, like, has the okay to say that to her, and it's, like, her father's father because, like, I'm like, the work that it would take to get him to
Sure.
and, like, the personal, like, how bad he
You're
would
like, "I
feel
would
if I'm
charge
like
a lot for
yeah,
that
if I try
coaching."
and put the entire patriarchy on this one man being like, "Oh, you're such" I'm just like, "Okay, but only him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Straight up broke her
Especially when,
dad. I'm like,
like,
"No,
they
Rio."
mean it as a compliment and you're like, "No, this is, like, the worst." But I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I actually think the best thing we can do for them is we do that deconditioning for ourselves, right? Because then it's not gonna be what spills out when we're bumped. It's like, "Okay, I already am, like, setting this context for me, for both of us." And then, I've heard from a lot of clients, and I'm sure as Rosie gets older, this is going to be like so true for me too. But it's like those moments where you're triggered. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, oh, this is my chance to do my like emotional regulation work. What in me like needed permission to be able to do what I'm letting her do right now. And like, every time I feel like I especially, like, hear this from parents of older kids, like 3 or 4, where it's like, okay, like, in me not responding the way that I was responded to, she gets a more healed childhood, and I get to heal my own childhood too. She's not in trouble for feeling her feelings. She doesn't get to throw the truck at my face or whatever,
Right?
but, like, I'm gonna respond knowing, like, "Oh, you're trying to bid for my connection. I'm gonna actually give it to you instead of, like, set you in timeout, not talk to you, withhold love and attention, and make everything worse and scary."
Yes. One of my co-parents would tell me all the time, "You're rewarding her poor behavior with my regulator," of like, she can't hear you if she's
Yeah.
not regulated. So like I understand that through your experience and your masculine lens and all of this and that, that like you're looking at this as like, oh, she's getting to jump on the trampoline. She's getting to throw these like soft balls. She's getting
Right, you're
it's
like, "This is the best
rewarding.
thing."
Yes, and I'm like, I am supporting her big feelings to get out of her body so that then like, you see it the moment that their little eyes are like, "Okay, I can hear you now. What were you trying to get?" I was like
Oh
"You can't throw your truck at my face. What do you mean?" Like, if it's
Yeah,
right when it's happening and they're so dysregulated and they're so upset and they're, like, wanting for the attention and the connect, I'm like, "Let's regulate your body. Okay,
yeah.
you've gotten those big feelings out. Now let's talk. Let's have that conversation.
Thank you
Let's
for
be
saying
present."
this. Yeah, yes.
And like it has been such a unique battle to have such different perspectives and to have a
Yes.
child who's so tapped in, who's like, "Mommy, it's really different in these two places at these two houses. And like, I like one a whole lot better than the other." And like hearing her talk about how difficult it is to regulate at his house because she's not supported in the same way. She's like, "Mommy, sometimes I have to go upstairs and cry by myself and give myself my space. And then I have to go downstairs to go get talked to. And then I have to go back upstairs and get more of my space." And her like little hands on her hip. And she's just
My
like,
god, but you've equipped her to know. Oh my gosh, it's so profound, and
and like,
probably it's, like, helping him learn too.
hopefully we get to that point. It's
The
been one of my
ripple
favorite
effects.
things to hear her go, "Mommy, anger is at the control panel right now."
Ah,
Especially with like Inside Out, those movies where they have all the emotions at the control
100%.
panel.
Anger has taken over.
She will straight
Anger
up
is
tell
stealing
you.
the
She's like,
ship.
"I like it when Joy's in control, but," and like her favorite is Disgust because she's like the snazzy girl who has
Oh,
like the cool, like she knows all the
yeah,
answers.
yeah.
And she's like, "Mommy, is it okay if sometimes I really like it when Disgust is in
Oh
control?"
my god, I love this. Yes,
Like, it's
yes,
just such a beautiful way for them to be able to, like, articulate that, and I'm like, "Yeah, honey, like,
100%.
judging thing of, like, oh, that's for me, that's not for me. I like that, I don't like that," versus judging other people are 2 very different things, and she's,
Yes,
like, very into her fashion stuff, and, like, I'm not a fashion lady, like, it's never been a thing I've been good
yeah,
at, and her
yeah.
stepmom is, like, holy shit, the most fashionable, and, like, will
Interesting.
help
Oh,
her
so
do,
she
like
gets it all. She
yeah,
gets it all. Yes.
and it's so fun because I just, like, dote over and gush over, and I'm just like, "This is so cool, like, I could not have done this already," and she's, like, doing her little fashion sketches, and she's, like, 6. It's so cute.
God, that's so beautiful. I feel like so many people listening probably just had a whole thing about their own divorced parents or their divorce heal. Like, just hearing about how, like, Yeah, more people loving our kids is never a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I, like, am so unbelievably focused on, and I get so much resistance from him. But, like, I refuse to see it as, "This is your family over here, and this is your family over here, and you have 2 houses and 2 families." I'm like, "You have 1 family and 2 houses." And he's like, "No, we have 2 families, like, you're not a part of my
Like,
family." And
"Ha
I'm like
ha, part of it.
and
Kick
I'm
her
like,
me."
you can think that all you want, but, like, as a child of divorced parents and as a child with
Same.
2 separate homes, like, when I really realized that, like, my parents couldn't stand each other, hated each other, wanted bad things for each other, and, like, didn't appreciate the fact that, like, without either of them, I wasn't possible. Yeah, and I'm just like, she's so much more important than, like, you and I have differing perspectives now. Like, I will love
Love
you,
that.
cherish you, and find you and your wife sacred for eternity because, like, you 2 are influencing her. You're growing her. You're committed to her. You love her. And, like, all I want her to hear is me spotlighting those things. And if it's not reciprocated, that's out of my
I
control.
can't
But, like,
control that. Yeah.
I will talk beautifully about your father and remind you why I picked him, why I feel you picked him, what he does that I cannot do, how different we are, and how that, like, but, like, I find it to be so important and also, like you're saying, not very common.
It's so profound. It's so profound, and it really just helps her see, no part of me is a mistake.
Yes.
'Cause it doesn't take long. I mean, I don't know if you had this experience, but it doesn't take long for kids to put together, like, "Oh, if you're, like, criticizing one of my parents and, like, I am
Yes.
half of them, like,
Yes.
okay, like, I'm not dumb. I can, like, feel
Right?
that."
And how the child brain
Yeah.
stores that. I mean, like, my grandmother talked to me so much when I was little about how much like my father I was, who, like, they all hated, and, like, I deeply understand what she was saying, like, I have so many qualities like my father, and it took me quite a bit of time to especially some of those things that, like, he modeled in the negative that, like,
Yeah.
on its own, just like with money, it's a neutral thing, and it's how
Yeah.
you wield, how you use it, but I had to figure that out and then deconstruct and de-armor all of that because I was
Yeah.
only told, "Oh, I'm horrible, I'm going to hell, I'm a bad person because I'm so much like my father."
Right. Right. Right.
Like, 6-year-old me did not do a great job of storing that, and, like, the meaning
Of
I made
course.
out of that was, like, insane, and, like, it's so much and I'm like, I refuse to just, like, send her off with that without me being in there with, like, how that gets to be stored, because
Yeah.
my voice is gonna show up as her inner voice later in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. I feel like that's just the thing we all get to remember too, if ever it starts to feel like maybe hiring the coach, going to Paris on the retreat, indulging in any of this stuff is selfish. I feel like the key to unlocking it is like, no, we're creating what's normal for them. And the ourselves, the more that voice that we use with them is loving, and then the more that inner voice that gets installed with them is loving.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my most important pieces with my child is that I've really wanted her to see and understand and witness me as a whole being, and that mother is not my name. Mother is not the only thing about me. And, like, I really want her to understand that, like, she is a whole person, a whole being, a whole regardless of what choices she makes, mother, not mother, what career, what choice, relationship, not really monogamous, poly, like all of these different things. And it was so cool when she saw a picture of me a couple years ago and she goes, "Oh, that's Lindsay. That's not mommy." And she can tell the difference between, like, this is my mommy being me and this is my mommy being
Really clarifying.
herself. And, like, the times where she, like, reminds me that, like, this is you in your like individual self, and I can differentiate you being in your mother role. And like she'll see it in little flickers, but like that was such a cool experience when she was like, yeah, that's a picture of Lindsay. And like it's always been important for me to like teach her my name, and especially because like my name is different than her last name, and like that was intentionally so. Like having a free birth, like when you go to get the birth certificate, they don't put, because he and I were not married, they don't put him on the birth certificate.
Ah,
So it was 100% my choice.
that's
Like I could have
true.
named her my
Yeah.
last name, but my
Yeah.
last name is representative of a man who I don't respect and who I
Right.
don't
Right.
like. I was not cared for and I was not respected by, and I've not
Like,
been.
I'm not passing this patriarchal bullshit on. Yeah.
Versus
Why?
her father, who deeply loves her, shows up for her, and carries his father's name, who raised him. And I'm like, as hard as that will be for me, that is the name that I desire her to carry and what I want and choose to be infused into like what we call her. But like that, when she was like, that's Lindsay, I was like,
That's
little
so
girl,
profound.
right?
Wow.
They are such potent, powerful beings on pressured, pushed down, wet blanketed by the systems. And I'm just,
So true.
I did not know that this conversation was going to go in this direction. So, like,
Was just
child and daughter
thinking
focus.
that. Oh my
But, like,
God. I'm like almost in tears, just feeling like, wow, like this
hmm
is exactly where it needed to go. What a like beautiful shock.
right?
But it's true. And, you have such a frequency of the divine feminine, which like we knew that obviously. But I feel like the divine mother, energy around that, being able to mother yourself, being able to
hmm
mother her, being able to like bring that loving energy to everything you do, even to like a co-parent who's like, no, don't love me. And it's like, haha, I do
Yeah,
anyway.
like, well, you don't get to choose, sir. He gets so annoyed because
Totally.
I'm
It's like,
like,
I
I
see the
do.
divine in you still. And he's
I
probably like,
love
no,
you. I think you. This is like it doesn't
totally.
change. Like there are reasons. And like
Lame.
I know it can be so easy for people to be like, "Oh, it was like not a plan." I was like, "You have no idea how planned this was. I planned for an entire year. I cycled my body in for an entire year to make this choice. I practiced conscious conception, guys. Like I literally did a practice to turn
Like you
myself
could not
in
have planned more.
to the lighthouse. I told people the 2 week I was like, I will be pregnant the second or third week of January in 2019. And everybody was like, no, you can't. I was like, watch me. Like fucking clockwork.
Incredible.
It
No,
was
it's
nuts.
so profound. Yeah, and for you to just be like, "I am rising, and I'm taking this whole tide with me." Yeah.
Mm, mm. What a beautiful conversation.
So grateful. I'm just so grateful for who you are in the world, and then just that feeling that I'm not alone. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the thing about some of this work is like it can feel so heavy until you realize, like, oh, I'm not supposed to do it all. I'm just supposed to do my part. And Lindsay's got her part, and our listeners have their part. And all of us are like, okay, like you take my hand, like, let's go. Like, we'll each do the part we're supposed to do, and when, like, we need a break, like, the
Yeah.
other one got it.
Yeah. The intention behind this started because we don't get water cooler talk. That like
Right.
we don't
Right.
I don't get to bump into you in the
Yeah,
kitchen making a matcha in between
exactly.
sessions and be like,
What
"Girl,
are you
what
working on
I just
today?
did, what you just," and like or like
Yes.
at the company Christmas party or like, "Oh, we're
Right.
both just leaving after ceremony closes at the same time," being like,
Right.
"Do you wanna go get a juice? We should talk about it. Like, let's connect about this.
Right.
Let's support each other in our own," like you get in a corporate office building. We are
Yeah.
so separated from each other, and I'm like, I want us to be able to have these conversations, and just like a young professional moving up the corporate ladder would love to hear two CEOs talking to each other. We
Yes.
want the next generation of us, those who are like called, and I don't mean next generation just by age. I mean those of you who are like, oh God,
Yeah.
I have these
I
things
could do
inside me. I
this.
want to
They can do
pursue
that.
that
I could
too.
do this.
Yes.
Yes.
To be able to truly hear where we go when we just get to be together and witness each other and support each other and truly embody this collaboration over competition. Once again, because the patriarchy doesn't model it for us.
So, so good. It's incredible.
Thank you. I feel deeply seen. And as I'm sure you know, being seen is not only so profound, but it can be so few and far between for us when you're at this
Definitely.
level, when you have these gifts, when you do this work, when you blaze your own trail so
It.
deep into the fucking
That's
thick
it.
for it
Completely.
that you don't see
Completely.
anybody else for days, weeks, months, years sometimes to be
Right. Like, am
seen.
I out here alone? But
Yes.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
I see you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. Thank you for helping me to create a reality where neither of our children need either of our work. Mm.
So good. Thank you. It's like we could talk for days, but
Right.
this is just perfect. And I'm so grateful.
I want to give you the space to talk about harlots and heretics so that if
Ooh,
someone who's listened is like, okay, I need more of her like right now, because as much as I would
yes.
want for the world that my child lives in to not need her, I need her.
Right,
So
right, right. Yeah.
share me about that so that when someone's like, yes, I want to immediately after I finish this podcast get more, that they know exactly which link in the show notes to click first.
Oh my God, so grateful. Yeah, Harlots and Heretics is my free course. It's on Mary Magdalene, the mystics, and the magic that has been attempted to be erased. I mean, we are remembering it now. I think about this all the time. It's like you can cut her from the canon, but like here we are 2000 years later talking about her on a podcast. So
Yes.
like it's not going anywhere. But yeah, it's completely free. It's like a gift of mine to the world. It's like a taste of my
Mhm.
work. But I do feel like after getting a master's at Yale, getting a PhD, having this decade of experience doing this business, it's just felt like I don't want everyone to have to jump through all those hoops to get the information. And as much as being embodied is what it's all about, it's like sometimes learning that shit is really helpful of like, oh, I'm
Yes.
not crazy.
Yes.
There was
Yes.
like a whole thing about silencing women who were in touch with their own medicine. And so like that reclamation process is sort of a feeling for me of like all hands on deck. So I'm so happy to have created it and give it to the world. And you can get it on my website, and it sounds like we'll link to it. It's up on my Instagram too. Just you put Harlots and then you get it sent to you.
Beautiful. In our show notes, we will have not only that jump, but all of the jumps to your social media, everything you've got going right now. And do you want to talk a little about Paris? I feel like this will come out early enough where it'll still
Yeah.
be beforehand.
Well, and I'm always like wanting to go back. So
You're like, I'll make another one.
you missed one round, just come again. But yeah, it's crazy, but I see the link so profoundly, and especially through what we've been saying about pleasure. But at first I was like, I don't know why, but I like want this to be part of my work. And now it feels so obvious. Like, yeah, you do more and more, excuse me, of this unpacking, and that pleasure priestess side comes out. So, I take people there on retreats. Sometimes we go on some retreats down to the south of France where Mary Magdalene's cave is
Mm.
too, and have like that element. And sometimes we're just in Paris itself and like going to high tea at the Ritz and like letting ourselves be in the pleasure, the divine feminine through art and, being in this in this city rich with like protest and also like perfection. It feels really profound to have both. And, I was thinking the other day about like there's the catacombs under the city, and then there's like the top of the Eiffel Tower and like having caviar. And it feels like it's all so meant for us as we like explore.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope this is not just one, but one of many, many conversations that we have.
You, honestly, you're such a gift. And yeah, I agree. Thank you for doing this work and just creating the space you create.
Mm.